Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a Ukrainian talk show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and today we have our guest starting with Professor Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Oh,
Great
thank you,
to have
Sasha.
as
Glad to be
always. Ivan Kucherenko from Kyiv, Ukraine. Welcome to the show.
Hello,
And the
Sasha.
founder of the network, of course, Nick Poliveda. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thanks, Sasha.
So let's start with the videos that Ivan has for us today. Let's watch it right away.
Putin. The question first emerged back when Russia's acting president was a largely unknown figure. Former KGB agent never matched the genius billionaire playboy philanthropist image, although during the presidency he did accumulate billions and build mansions. But Putin started small. Working in KGB in Dresden, Putin, named Moth, used his position to get a stolen Western radio, saying he needed it to make money. 2 years back in St. Petersburg, he faced accusations of embezzling at least $100 million. He issued licenses for the export of raw materials in exchange for food nobody ever received. The case was hushed up. Compromised Putin was promoted, enriching his friends. Together, they formed the Ozero Dacha Cooperative, guarded by a criminal gang. His coach, convicted gangster Leonid Usvyatsev, died in a street fight. Despite this reputation, Putin became the director of the FSB, blurring the lines between the mafia and the state. Already a president, he kept using prison jargon, suggesting his vision of Russia resembles a mafia state under his control. Yet, even being corrupt and alleged war criminal, he falls short of a godfather image. The true answer to who is Mr. Putin we'll receive in The Hague.
Well, that's a great video.
Really?
From what I understand, that is his history. He's just a little thug who made it all the way. And for some reason, if you oppose him, you end up being poisoned somehow. In other words, or you die mysteriously. And now I understand they don't have golf courses in country clubs in Russia. No tennis courts. No wonder why they're miserable over there. I mean, Lord.
There are some golf courses and tennis courts as well, because if you remember the late Mr. Yeltsin, Boris Yeltsin was a big fan of tennis, and he was practicing tennis with Tarapyshev, who at the time was the head of the Tennis Russian Federation, and he enjoyed himself playing with him. And the golf is concerned, there are a few golf courses. The most notable one is on Putin's so-called dacha. It's a mansion worth $2 billion on the Black Sea in Gelendzhik. And maybe there are a couple of other golf courses. And of course, but Putin's passion is hockey. He plays on of course, closed hockey ring with some notables, well-known Russian hockey players like Fetisov and
all of whom have the good sense to lose to Mr. Putin.
Oh, he scores 11 goals in each match whenever he plays.
What a surprise.
Well, with his skills, it's expected. Especially, I don't understand. Maybe they have a net, enlarged nets, like in soccer, for example. So that he scored so many goals. Otherwise, I can't figure out.
Well, like in presidential elections, when he received like the 80% of all votes and the majority.
Well, that automatically tells you that, yeah.
In some regions, even more than 100% of people living in these regions, they vote for Putin. Like 107% of votes he received in some.
That tells you the percentage of people in Russia who have an interest in living.
And even dead people vote.
Right.
Oh, we have another video. Can we see the other video?
Another video.
Yeah.
We can say another one.
Okay.
Hallucinations. Putin says he is not trying to seize Ukraine, but takes back Russia's historical lands. So exactly how far do these lands extend? First of all, countries from the former USSR and socialistic bloc, which separated illegally with gifted lands, according to Russia. Putin says Lenin created Ukraine, Khrushchev gave it Crimea, and Stalin gave Poland its western lands. Russian politicians have repeatedly stated that Kazakhstan is completely rented from the USSR, or simply Russian. A Russian deputy submitted a bill to repeal the decree recognizing Lithuania's independence. Lithuania Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia in Russia are still referred to by a colonial term, Pribaltika, not their official country names. Russian school books claim that the unification of Germany was in fact annexation by the collective West. The Russian emperor sold Alaska to the United States, but it is still somehow considered Russian land. One of Putin's favorite bands, Lyubez, sings, "Give me back my land Alaska. Give me back my native land." Parliament representatives say they can start returning it. Luckily, all those returns are impossible as long as Ukraine stands in the way of Russian conquests.
That's pretty
I
good.
don't know what's happened with Alaska. Maybe U.S. gave NSF check to Russian Tsar.
That's a check.
Now the
Bad check.
retrieved.
It bounced.
Our money was good.
It bounced,
But,
yeah, unfortunately.
Hey, listen, we helped Russia survive World War II, or they'd be eating German food right now over there. So
We helped them
this is how they
survive.
repay.
Nick, we helped them survive the aftermath of World War One.
Right.
We had and it's not very well known or advertised, but the United States headed up a massive relief effort specifically to Ukraine, the area of Ukraine, which formalized massive relief efforts, which saved millions of Russians and Ukrainians from starving to death during that period.
Right.
And Russia does not like to be reminded of that.
But in order
and even after the collapse of Soviet Union, United States helped Russia because provided with a lot of humanitarian aid and those chicken legs, which frozen, deep frozen chicken legs, which in Russia were called bush legs, because it was a humanitarian aid provided by the United States when the George Bush Senior Junior was the president, or senior.
He was senior.
Senior, yeah, and but I think it was a great mistake from the United States because it's helped Russia to survive. Maybe the total collapse of Russia was the only way to purify them from their imperialistic ambitions, and this total collapse is actually imminent, thanks to Mr. Putin and his crazy ideas of conquering the former Soviet republics, and his mistake when he started from Ukraine probably will just speed up this collapse. But as we see, these crazy ideas are supported by the majority of Russians. So they think that it's okay for Russia to be an empire. It's okay for Russia to conquer territories with weapons, with bomb shellings, and it's normal to commit atrocities, to steal the goods, steal the washing machines from people of other countries where they come with weapons, and it's okay to kidnap children and bring them to Russia, and they really don't understand why international court issued a warrant against Putin, because in their minds they are saving Ukrainian children, they are saving the people of Ukraine from the United States, which actually it's not Russia. It's like you've probably read about it in the 1984 book, and you've read about it in the articles in the books about the Goebbels principles of propaganda after the Second World War, and they say that lie should be totally, and if the lie will not be totally, no one will believe in it. So in minds of Russians, they're saving Ukraine from the United States. It's the United States which decided to conquer Russia, which actually was making to conquer Ukraine and Russia. Actually, it was the United States which made the Ukrainians be so aggressive against Russians, and the United States wanted to use Ukrainians as a proxy to attack Russia, and if Russia would not attack Ukraine, then they would have to fight on their own territories when Ukrainians will go and attack Russia. So crazy bullshit.
It's really twisted logic.
Yeah, I see a lot of videos of captured Russian soldiers, of prisoners of war, and some of them say we had no choice, we were just grabbed and thrown in that war. Some of them says, oh, we received so less money in our Russian villages. We have no toilets, we have no roads there, and we never seen $100 in our life. And this is in region where they mine diamonds or where they mine oil. In these regions, they have no roads, they have no electricity, no gasification in houses, because everyone goes to the center of the empire, to the Moscow, and in this region they have nothing, and they earn like several hundred dollars per month. $100 for them is a great sum, and $3,000 which they can earn while fighting in Ukraine, it's actually enormous money, and for those money they can buy at least a washing machine, which is actually or they can steal it in Ukraine, yeah, and which is
so when the Russians invade Ukraine and they see toilets, they think they've entered paradise.
Yeah. When actually Russians invaded Ukraine, they in the beginning of the last year, and they invaded the suburbs of Kiev. Actually, when they've captured Bucha, Irpin, the satellite cities of Kiev, where a lot of people from Kiev actually live there. And because the real estate there is pretty cheap comparing to Kiev, and they're going commuting every day to the work in Kiev, when they've seen that we have lightning on the streets in the evening, and that we have the good roads as well, that we have good houses with washing machines, with the toilets, not outside on the backyard, but inside the house. They were really shocked because from one side they've been told by Russian propaganda that the Ukrainians are very poor nations, that we always are in some kind of despite, and we just are going and asking for money from everyone, and we steal Russian gas, which they're transporting over the Ukrainian territory to Europe, and all those kind of bullshit. And when they've seen that Ukrainians live pretty good and have all those elements of civilization which they don't have, it was really shock for them. But coming back to the motivation of Russian soldiers, some of them were really like mobilized with power, and they were not able to do anything with this mobilization. Some of them were going for money, but the pretty high number of Russian soldiers, they really believe that in Ukraine they are fighting with the United States, with NATO, and in Ukraine they are defending Russia by capturing Ukrainian territories. And this is really just enormous bullshit which was put in their minds.
Yeah, it is essentially what the argument that the propaganda that the Russians are making in justify. They believe it. In effect, to put it in our terms, they believe they are engaging in a preventive war in order to initiating war before an opponent gets any stronger. And so they're saying that, well, we have to do this. We have to occupy Ukraine in order to prevent Ukraine from being used as a springboard for the invasion of Russia, and so forth and so on. And by that logic and by the logic of the Russian concept of security known as bezopasnost, essentially any opposing threat needs to be neutralized. Their security demands the corresponding insecurity of the nations that oppose them, and preferably their subjugation, if not occupation itself. So that's a very difficult proposition for us to deal with. And the only way that we can stop them is we have to, as I've said before, we have to inflict a decisive operational defeat on the Russian forces. Now, we have half of that already in the Ukrainian victories against the Russian Black Sea Fleet. We have driven the Russians out of control of the Black Sea Fleet so that Odessa can be used as a port for export of Ukrainian goods. That is one part of it. If we can complete that neutralization so that the Russian Black Sea Fleet is essentially completely destroyed and that is open market, that's part of the equation. The other part will be, of course, as I've said before, severing the logistic and reinforcement link between Russia and Crimea. Once that is done, either through the Ukrainians getting close enough to deliver effective firepower on that link to completely destroy it and make Russian sustainment of their occupation forces not viable. If we can do that, then that opens the way, the opportunity for the Ukrainians to launch a counteroffensive with their remaining strategic reserves into Crimea to complete the defeat of Russian forces there, which will be cut off. Once that is done, then Ukraine will have attained, through its own efforts largely, a very strong position to negotiate to force Russia to agree to an armistice, a theater-wide ceasefire. That will give us more breathing room. Now, I've also noticed that Western analysts the majority have increasingly come to the conclusion that the Ukrainian counteroffensive has failed and that they're not expecting any, notice they're not talking about any potential Ukrainian counteroffensive continuing or being initiated during the winter months. Now, they are making a mistake in not anticipating this, because as you recall, during the latter months of World War II, in December of 1944, the United States on the Western Front in France, they were pausing before beginning their operations across the Rhine in 1945. They were giving their troops on the Western Front a rest, and they thought that they could, in the Ardennes sector, put their least trained American troops there to give them a rest or a respite from the combat activities that were going on the rest of the front. They did not realize that the Germans were concealing their own forces for use in a counteroffensive against the West in what we know as the Battle of the Bulge, the Ardennes offensive, which inflicted 70,000 American casualties, I will point out, and almost succeeded, except for the fact that George Patton's Third Army Group, they anticipated the offensive and they had managed to position reinforcements to block any German penetration. But what I'm pointing out is that do not underestimate the possibility that the Ukrainian armed forces are keeping well concealed any potential surprise counteroffensive during the winter, which would succeed in severing the link between Russia and Crimea. That is a logical and reasonable objective, and it is attainable. And what Ukraine's challenge is going to be, as it has obviously been for the past year, is sustaining political and military and economic support from its Western allies. As Nick said in a previous program, and I hate to use this phrase because it translates so badly to an international audience, but the U.S. putting its big boy pants on, well, in essence, the U.S. To put it another way, the U.S. simply needs leadership needs to display a more resolute and more aggressive attitude in opposing Russian aggression and not being ambiguous about it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's my statement.
I'm afraid we have to notice that indeed in the last few days, there is a proliferation of different articles and opinions and comments in both U.S. press and media, as well as Ukrainian, both Ukrainian language and Russian language, different media. And so there are several lines. I wouldn't even figure out where to start at. One is the possible disagreements between Zaluzhny and Zelensky. Another one is inability of U.S. Congress and Senate to come up with a continuous help to Ukraine. It's all boggled down in a question of budget for the southern border in U.S., which tells it was very difficult to normal person understand the correlation between the help to Ukraine and Israel, by the way, at the same time, and southern border issues. I'm not saying that it's an important one. It is an important one, but what it has to do with help to Ukraine and Israel, it's all political games, of course, as we know, and so on. So all that reflects on ability of Ukraine to complete its offensive, and there are accusations that Zaluzhny is not a team player, that he was discussed with Austin and other in the U.S. Top generals to do one thing, yet he did different thing. On the other hand, logical to say how Zelensky could ever to do what he was asked by U.S. general if he didn't have supply, not only aviation like F-16s or so on, but even much more. Even at that time, even ATACMS weren't available to Ukraine. They became available much later. And so it's very difficult. I'm pretty sure that these discussions were going on for a long time, but for the first time in the last few days, it went up in the open, the sources of information, and that makes whole situation a little bit more difficult for Ukraine, in my opinion. However, what is missing here, in my opinion, is that, okay, so based on all this, Ukraine, especially that Russia now is talking that they want peace and they want to start negotiating with Ukraine. And so the normal question would be, well, why did Ukraine would negotiate with Russia? Because what else it can do if all U.S. help will stop? People are forgetting that the Russia is unable to negotiate anything with any country at all, and it's not trustworthy. And whatever they are going to talk and promise, the next day it will be absolutely denied, and it will be a zero. And besides, there is no mechanism of enforcing Russia's promises and whatever they would agree upon. So Ukraine is absolutely right, in my opinion, that no negotiations with Ukraine are possible. Absolutely. No, under any plan, under any promises or so on, because it cannot be enforced. It will be broken the very next day that it will be agreed upon. And Ukraine will be even in much worse situation than where it is now. Jonathan, what do you think about it?
We have another video, so let's take
Okay. Okay, let's do it.
I'm proud of my injury. I was wounded in battle.
I was more worried about how my family would find out about it.
I took it as if life was trying to play a joke on me. I'm just going to poke fun at it way more in return.
There was a week when I mopped around a bit. I was watching videos of Dua Lipa, a British singer, and how they danced there. I thought, shit, I'll never be able to dance like that.
While crossing the railway tracks, the enemy spotted us at night. They were shooting at infantry with anti-tank weapons. It severed my leg like a branch.
The shelling began and we sprinted towards the planted trees. I led the way. Suddenly an explosion erupted. I saw it happening in front of me. Smoke billowing, debris flying.
It was a blast injury sustained in enemy territory during a combat mission. Once I got the prosthesis, I immediately stood up and walked, and the next day I even bought a motorcycle.
Following rehabilitation, numerous surgeries, and the fitting of a prosthesis, I rejoined my team in early summer.
I'm trying to be useful too. I've taken up teaching, focusing on tactical firearms training and shooting. If I could turn back time, I wouldn't change a thing. I would have done the same, flown again, taken a different scope, and eliminated even more of the enemy.
With 2 children of my own, I want them to grow up in a country that embraces European values.
The world of the future for me is, first of all, a world without empires.
Ukraine is my homeland, where I was born. It's my home. I won't give up my home just like that.
Very compelling video there, Nick.
Can you defeat an army like this? I don't think so.
And it's actually an answer to your question, Sasha, that even without the support of the United States, even without support of Ukraine, European Union, Ukraine will continue fighting. And of course, the efficiency of our fight will not be pretty high, but we will not give up our territory because we understand what future is waiting for us. Future of being tortured by Russian soldiers. No one is safe in Ukraine. I'm not safe, actually.
Nobody.
I understand that I'm already in some kind of FSB lists of Russia, and if they will be able to capture me, then probably I will not be able to pass their filtration and will be eliminated because I'm an enemy of Russia. I'm saying bad things about Mr. Putin, and this is a real threat for most of Ukrainians. And we've seen already how they behave with the people who they consider being a threat for them in Bucha. They just killed majority of men because those men were like pro-Ukrainian. They were supporting Ukraine, had some Ukrainian attributes. They probably were previously soldiers or policemen, etc., and they eliminated them. So, and this is the only way for that. But will Americans or Canadians or Europeans had a good sleep when they will know that they've stopped the support of Ukraine in such situation, that they guaranteed security for Ukraine. They've signed an agreement about that Budapest Memorandum when Ukraine gave up nuclear weapons. Of course, it was a problem of Ukraine and Ukrainian lawyers that we didn't mention in this memorandum the specific actions of those security guarantees. We believed United States, we believed Great Britain, and we believed Russia that those countries will guarantee our security, that according to the Budapest Memorandum, no one will attack us, and it's okay for us to give up our nuclear weapons, which were the second largest nuclear arsenal in the world at that time. And
Third.
Third, okay. And what now we have? Is this the way?
Furthermore, what is especially incredibly dangerous to agree to any peace with Russia, or not even a peace, I don't believe there could be any peace with Russia, but even negotiations of any kind. Don't forget that Russia is one of very few countries in the history of the world warfare practicing rapes as the means of dominating the country and torturing women specifically and children and so on.
I must-
And of course, Hamas is very good student of, and they've been trained by Russians. So they're doing the same thing against Israeli women,
And I
not
would remi-
anymore, but they did it on October 7th, and that's more than enough. And now when Israel is bringing this question to United Nations or any other bodies, nobody wants to listen to them. Nobody. So, well, it's happened and so on. But anyway, Israel is doing a very capable job on suppressing any Hamas, not even actions. The existence itself of Hamas is under heavy question, and I can bet that in few weeks, if not earlier, it will be completely eliminated, and probably half of population of Gaza probably will go on with that because sorry, collateral damage is happening. And in this case, Ukraine is now becoming basically the number one point of the Western resistance against complete domination of empires of evil or evil empires, which includes, of course, it's Russia, it's China, North Korea, Iran, but furthermore, there could be several other countries which are almost there. They just haven't openly declared their intentions, but they will join Russia as soon as possible. And don't forget the BRICS, which their strategic goal is to eliminate US dollar as the currency of the last reserve, and that would spell the end of United States with $34 trillion worth of debt. We have several problems. Nick, you know, remember on one of the programs, I suggested that it would be great for US just to declare itself insolvent and forget about the $4 trillion debts. I have a friend of mine, by the way, well, it was back in the 90s, and he still remembers the happiest days of his life was in about 1 month before his bankruptcy. He had some fundamental problem in his business. So what he did, he took a lease of Bentley. He was traveling to France and all other wonderful countries around the world, taking cruises and enjoying life to the fullest. And when the time was due, he declared bankruptcy. But he had a wonderful life for some time. And what's a bankruptcy? So he was discharged 8 months later, and he was free of all debts. Nick, what's the problem with the U.S.? Okay, you change constitution if needed, but I'm not sure even that required.
Nick,
Well,
you're
I'll mute
muted.
myself. Sasha, I'll actually be in Washington, D.C. next week speaking before the Department of Labor. So relating to some issues that we're discussing here. But now that you remind me, because I can get on these panels, what I will do is I'll have to find the panel, because I usually have hearings up there that have the Ukraine war, and see if we can get Ivan to come over. I can take care of his answer and everything, assuming I can get him out of Ukraine. I don't know. I've never done that before. But
Okay.
to speak about that, because right now, the U.S. is very, very political, but kind of an open system, and they do listen to people eventually, we hope. And I think if I'll just have to find out when the hearings are relating to the Ukrainian. Right now, it's going through Congress, the budget to support Ukraine, which is about 60 or 70 billion. But hearing from people that the boots on the ground is a lot more helpful than that. So I'll work on that next week and see what we can do in that particular area. But anyway, I'll be in Washington, D.C. next week. John is in Washington, but he's going to be on vacation, so he's leaving when I'm going. So,
And
it
it's
is
great
what it
to.
is.
I'm going into hiding for a week.
What?
to
I'm
have
going
that.
into deeper hiding for a week.
Yeah, you're going to North Carolina. I'm going to go to D.C. But yeah, because the thing is, the real problem with the U.S. is they suffer from ADD. They can't seem to keep their attention and focused on one thing. And so all of a sudden the war goes off the media, and all of a sudden they forget it. And it is a big thing. I mean, you really do not want to have Putin be the leader of the free world, because he's not free and he's not a leader. So what we need to do is we need to contain this person, use every available means to do so, and bring Ukraine into the European Union. Just do it. But unfortunately, DC is a tough and stupid place to work in, but I'll be there next week hammering them on that. And by the way, Ivan, since I'm there talking to those people, I will mention also the Ukraine. Okay.
Thank you, Nick. Actually, there is a very one simple thing, and about what Tasha you said, and one of the Ukrainian heroes, which was killed during this war, Roman Ratushny, a very really young soldier. He said that the more Russians we will kill in this war, the less Russians will have our children to kill in the future. And this is really simple. And I had a rumor that in one closed meeting with the congressman, the head of Pentagon, Lloyd Austin, said that in case the United States will stop helping Ukraine and will not assist in defeating Russia, then their children will have to fight Russians, or maybe themselves in the really near future. It's quite obvious for me, because we're seeing what modern Russia, what kind of country modern Russia is, and this axis of evil Sasha mentioned, with Russia, with Iran, with the Hamas, North Korea, probably China, but luckily China is more into trading, but not into war, at least for now. It is a really great danger for civilized countries and for the United States itself. And now there is a real opportunity to kick off one element of this axis of evil. The defeat of Russia will mean that they will not be able to empower other countries, this axis of evil. The victory of Russia will mean that these countries will be more and more powerful, and then they will consider that they can achieve their geopolitical ambitions with using the weapons and using all those barbaric methods of war, which we were discussing for almost 2 years. Actually, it's almost 2 years when I joined the Sasha's show, and this war continues. And for me, it's obvious. I don't understand why it's not obvious in DC for the congressmen, why they're arguing about whether to help Ukraine and not to help. It's first of all, it's a reason of future of United States itself. If they consider that they will be able to sit on a separate continent far away from Russia, like United States was considering before the World War II, it will not happen. The World War II showed that even on a separate continent far away from Russia or from Japan, United States can be secured. And during that war, there were no ballistic missiles, there were no nuclear submarines, there were no strategic bombers and all those stuff. Now, if Russia will prevail in this war, and if Russia will mobilize fully their economy on the war mode, then they will go further. And that video I have shown from one side, it's really funny. From other side, maybe they will decide to claim back Alaska, invade it, capture it, and then say, hey, President Trump, it's your new geopolitical ambitions. You have to realize and accept them. Alaska is now. It was a great geopolitical mistake when we've sold them to the United States for some small sum of money, number of money. And
7 million.
Now it's our historical territory, so you just have to accept this geopolitical reality, and that Alaska is a historical territory of the Russia.
Ivan, the very serious business is that majority of U.S. electorate, they want to support Ukraine. It's the politicians in Washington are playing their own games, have nothing to do with reality, and they're trying just to score political victory and, for example, to make Biden agree to their demands on the southern border. So this way, Biden will lose his face with, for example, Latin American electorate, and so the Republican will have a much easier way to have victory in the upcoming election, while support for Ukraine in this case will materialize. I think it will materialize in any case, simply because they cannot ignore the majority of American people who wants that. The problem also is with NATO and with European partners of Ukraine. Germany admitted that they are unprepared to face Russia for the next 3 to 7 years. So what I heard, you've heard that, right?
And the thing is, Sasha, what I would emphasize to our German listeners is that at the end of World War II, as the Soviet army entered the eastern portion of Germany and was taking Berlin, it is estimated that the Soviet army committed 2 million rapes against German women and children. That's fairly well documented and difficult to ignore. And our German listeners should be reminded that fate awaits them again if Russia is not stopped decisively in Ukraine, and if NATO does not stand together, that various of its members, as Russia is able to attack and conquer, if they're able to attack and conquer them, a similar fate awaits them as well. So this is not a nice to do thing, it is a must do thing. Russia must be defeated operationally in Ukraine, and I've already described the methods by which this might be done. And it is still quite possible that during these coming winter months that Ukraine may have another surprise up its sleeve and be able to inflict a surprise operational defeat upon the Russians and sever the link. If that is accomplished, then the game once again changes, and this time in favor of Ukraine and the West.
Absolutely, Jonathan. I totally agree with you. And I would like to thank you very much for today's program. Hope to see you next Tuesday, same place, same time, except you, Jonathan, right?
Yeah, I'm taking a little bit of time off, and it's like I say, I'll be quietly observing and enjoying. But anyway, I will see you about a week from now.
Okay, Ivan, please try to make it on Tuesday.
I'll be there, I promise.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.